Hi everybody, it's Dogbert here. I'm going to be presenting my new infographic. Now normally I do a little comedy skit here, make us all laugh, and then we go into my newest infographic. But today I need to address an issue that we all need to be made aware of, and we all need to take action on. First though, meet my assistant, Thomas Papyrus. Thomas here is obviously a roll of toilet paper. Now, the average family goes through 57 sheets a day of toilet paper. They are simply ripping apart toilet paper here like Thomas, using it to clean themselves and disposing it down a toilet. This is totally unnecessary and very costly for the average family. Thomas doesn't want to be ripped apart. Thomas doesn't want to be flushed down a toilet. Thomas wants to live. Please stop killing Thomas. And to make this all even worse is that we do have an eco-friendly, septic-safe alternative that is way cheaper than toilet paper. And we need to all dig down. We need to all make the switch to Marvel Strike Force infographics, available from all content creators. By switching to Marvel Strike Force infographics, not only will you be saving money, be cleaner, you'll be saving toilet paper like Thomas. So, all you need to do is like, share this video, subscribe to my channel, help support toilet paper like Thomas here, and embrace Marvel Strike Force infographics. Thank you. Hello and welcome. I am Dogbert and I have the plunger on my head, which I think we all know what that means. Yep, it's time for another Dogbert's Team Toilet Paper Infographic for the new Warriors today, because now we have 2 more new Warriors. We have the full team finally. That'll probably never happen for X Factor. Get fucked, Commanders. Anyway, let's move on and start talking about this team. And don't forget, before we start talking about this, please make sure to switch to Marvel Strike Force infographics instead of toilet paper. Save little Johnny some trouble getting plunged constantly. And of course, we want to save Thomas Papyrus as well. Of course, he's the one who's the most victimized of us all. Now, moving on, we are going to talk about Dildo first. That's right, Dildo is up first, and she is still a striker. She does do the most damage between her and Hoodie, so this is why you want her as striker. If you use a striker skirmisher combo between her and Hoodie, you could actually interchange this to a skirmisher, but she does the more damage and puts out the bleeds. That's why you want her as a striker. As far as her T-Force, her basic is nice to have. This will help out, of course, if you put this onto her. Increase her damage with that striker skirmisher combo for her assist mechanic. It also just puts out a couple more regens. It's not really necessary, but it is nice to have. A little bit of a boost, a little bit more damage. Not much else. Her special is highly recommended because this makes her clear all the positive effects off the target. It also makes her chain to another target as well. The special is actually quite good because it also heals up some characters on the team depending on who you brought. Ultimate also recommended. This is her big hit. When she's with Hoodie, she can put out those debuffs. This is going to do a lot of damage. This is a lot of extra damage. That is why it is recommended. And last but not least is her passive, which is just a luxury. What this does, it gives 3 regeneration on spawn for 2 turns to Mystic Hero and New Warrior allies, and 20% resistance for Mystic Hero and New Warrior allies. This is useful, kind of a little bit useful in the raids, because this was originally supposed to be a Mystic raid team. So keep this all in mind. And let's move on to Hoodie. That's right, we're moving on to Hoodie now, and he is still a skirmisher, although there is an argument to be made to put Striker on him and put the skirmisher over on Dildo because of his abilities. If you look at his passive, he reduces speed bar by 15% every time he applies an offense down. Actually, it's whenever any enemy gains offense down. Doesn't matter if he does it or somebody else does it. It's in Raids or Cosmic Crucible offense that he'll reduce that speed bar. It's such a little thing here. He does apply offense down in his basic. That's why you're trying to get the double tap there. But how often are you really using his basic? Not very. You're pretty much going to be using the special ultimate, and by then you're probably done with the match. So that is why I'm still saying skirmisher for him. As for his basic, it is a nice-to-have T4. It's 60% more damage. He's not the most damaging character. That goes to Dildo. It does help with, he does apply assist now automatically to a random Dildo ally as part of his basic as well. But this T4 is just 60% more damage. His special is a nice-to-have. It increases the slow defense down and offense down to 2 turns and gives him 100% more damage to the primary target. It is a single target. It's pretty good. Is it great? No, because he doesn't put out a whole lot of damage. He's not made to. He's really more of a debuffer. His ultimate is absolutely recommended, though. This is 50% damage to all enemies. And if you have Dildo with him, he gets another 60% piercing to all enemies on top of this. Very good T4 to have. Highly recommend. He will work without this T4. He puts out all the debuffs like you really want him to do, no matter if you have this T4 or not. That is why this is just a recommended T4. And finally, his passive is just a nice to have. It's 20% focus for Mystic Hero and New Warrior allies. That does help out. And it's 10% additional dodge chance when he has offense up. Does give him a slight bit more survivability. He's very annoying with his dodges. And now I think this is the moment you've all been waiting for. We're coming up on the third character we're going to talk about. And that means it's time for the turd of the team. Yes, the turd of the team, the character you wish you could replace, the character who is horrible, but you have to run him on the team anyway. Because fuck you, there's no theory crafting anymore. If you don't believe me, just take a look at the new Invader raids. So, who is the turd of the team? Well, if you've been watching my videos, you would know it's Firestar. That's right, the only mutant on a Mystic team. Yep, there's 4 Mystics and 1 mutant. At 14, it was originally supposed to be a raid team, which you could only do based on those origins. So that's why she is that's one of the reasons why she started the team. The other is because, well, she doesn't really put out much damage, despite her just being a damage character. Unless you get her at higher stars, but that's not really useful. And the kind of fact that she just kind of sits there. If you actually play this team, she takes 1 or 2 turns normally, and then you're usually done with the match. Getting a little bit longer with some these bigger Eternals and Weavers and stuff like that. But all this said, right now the ISO recommendation is Raider. However, this can change if you actually are wailing on her, getting her up to like 6, 7 yellow. You have the reds as well, so that she actually puts out damage. But if you look at a lot of her abilities, she gets a lot of extra crit, so putting Raider on her can almost make it a guaranteed crit. So that's why you kind of want to look at those things when we're talking about Firestar. Now, as for her T4s, because she is a turd of the team, there's not going to be a whole lot of them I'm going to actually recommend. They're mostly all luxury because, well, she's a turd. So putting things into this turd is not recommended as much as except for 1 T4. Now, if you're actually trying to build her, then these can be a higher value to you. Now, her basic is luxury. What this does is 50% piercing to primary target and gives it extra 10% crit chance. Here we go with crit chance stuff, why you would want Raider. As for her special, also a luxury, it's 60% piercing to the primary and secondary targets, and it flips 3 positive effects to negative effects rather than just 1. So if you're actually building her and you are willing to invest this kind of stuff into a turd, go right ahead. Our ultimate, also another luxury. This is a very long cooldown. You generally use it turn 1, and that's pretty much all you use it. That's the only time you'll ever use it during a match if you're using her Crucible. Don't bring her to Dark Dimension. She's horrible. It gives 50% piercing to the primary and adjacent targets. On Crucible offense, it does apply trauma and heal block to primary and adjacent targets, so that could help out with the Eternals. So this one's luxury, borderline, nice to have if you're trying to knock out the Eternals, but in reality, you really don't need that. It doesn't hurt, though. And finally, her passive is required because this gives 30% more accuracy for herself and the new warriors. Otherwise, it's only 20%. With this, it brings it up to 50% of what you need to overcome those Weaver charges. She just kind of needs to be present with this passive T4 in order to make the team beat the Tangled Web and the Eternals. So now that we talked about the turd of the team in Firestar, it's time to move on to better characters like Gwenpool. One of the other newer characters that just came on board, and she is going to be right now a Raider. Although there is some arguments to be for Striker, she kind of does do a lot of basicking, but Raider works out quite well. She does quite a bit of damage. So her basic is a highly recommended basic because you're going to be using this a lot if you bring her to like a Dark Dimension. And what this T4 does, it clears all barrier on the primary target. If that target had barrier, she gets 30% barrier for herself. It's actually quite good. The basic by itself is quite good because it's giving defense up to the new warriors that don't have to a new warrior that didn't have defense up at the beginning. So it is quite good. Gives them more survivability. Her special is required if you want her to work right in Crucible offense. It gives, she gets immunity. She does 150% more damage to the primary and secondary targets, which she hits 4 adjacent targets with essentially the entire team, just about. And the big thing is, it gives her 70% speed bar, which she does need to go and get the next turn, because when she does this, she gains taunt. And right now we have her a little bit lower stars. Once we get her up a bit more, she'll be a lot more survivable. You want to get that basic off next. And finally, we come into the ultimate. Now, this one is also required because when you go to use this ultimate, you want to kill somebody because of those buffs in Cosmic Crucible. This will take anybody killed by this attack cannot be revived. There's revive onces if you're going to Tangled Web in the Eternals. This is giving 180% damage to all enemies. You'd want this just for that, never fact, but the fact is you want to get people dead with this. And on top of this, you can also get Safeguard, defense up, speed up to the entire team. It's quite useful when you're going against those nasty Eternals in case they try to flip their buffs on you. And finally, last but not least, is her passive. Also required because this gives the 50% accuracy, the other 50% you need, along with Firestar, in order to overcome those Weaver charges. Now the Weaver charges no longer matter. It also gives Unspawn and Evade, and then Crucible gives 2 Evades, which comes in quite handy to the entire team right off the bat to help just neutralize any barrage at the beginning. And last but not least, we have Deathpool, who I am still running as a Striker. There's some arguments that can be made for Skirmisher because of the debuff stuff, but I still like her as Striker, getting some extra hits. She hits pretty good. She got a little bit of a buff there with the rework, if you want to call it that, or a touch-up, I should say. Not much else changed. She just mostly got stat boosts, so she needed it. Her basic is nice to have. It's 60% more damage to the primary and secondary targets, or 120% of the target is a minion. So something nice there, and it always flips stealth and speed up. This was more valuable when she first came out. Not as valuable as now. It's kind of moved down into a nice to have. Her special absolutely required. This makes transfer all negative effects from her to the primary target, plus whatever the primary target has then gets spread around. So this is why you maybe want to think about a Skirmisher. She does work just fine as a Striker. And it also gives 50% damage to primary and secondary targets, which is a nice bonus. But the big thing is, though, transferring all those negative effects off of herself onto whoever she's attacking, and then spreading those effects plus whatever effects they already had to the adjacent targets. And ultimate is actually a nice to have. It's nice to get an extra 100% damage and get a couple bleeds out there. But in reality, if you pair her up with Gwenpool, she's going to be charging up a lot quicker. That damage isn't going to matter as much because she's going to be annihilating them anyway and just killing them outright a lot more now. So keep that in mind by the time you actually get to use this. Now this has moved down to a nice to have. It used to be kind of recommended, but now it's just kind of nice to have. And finally, her passive is recommended. This is only 60. It might seem low, only 60% damage to most injured enemy, but that's any enemy you kill automatically sets this off. That means you kill those multiple man things, you kill Greg, whatever. You're going to be setting her off 60% every time somebody dies. This really ramps up and is really valuable in raids. Does help out in Crucible a little bit, but more valuable in raids because this was supposed to be the Mystic raid team originally. But I'm sure they're going to be selling us something new because if you look at the invasion raids, it's get fucked new warriors or you're not using them. So we'll have to see what we end up coming up with. So that does it for the new warriors today. If you think you don't like anything I recommend, you can always comment down below and I'll ignore you. And remember, Marvel Strike for infographics instead of toilet paper. Until next time, everybody.